Welcome back to another team selection video, this time out of Double Gameweek 34, where I'm open to the idea of taking a -8 hit, possibly even a -12. I'll be discussing all the ins and outs of my transfer plans, how I did in Game Week 33, and everything else that we need to cover for this upcoming Double Game Week, all the best options, the captaincy, latest injury news. There will be more press conferences later today on the Friday, so there could also be some more updates which we can talk about in the comment section down below. Let's get straight into this video. Be sure to drop this video a like, share this video around, all that good stuff to help this channel out in the algorithm, and let's jump straight into this video. I usually get goalkeeper decisions spot on, but this week I was completely off the mark. I went for Kepa Arrizabalaga over David Raya. They faced each other, of course, and it was Raya getting 9 points, while Kepa only got 1. In the reverse fixture, it was a 0-0 draw. Kepa got 8 points and David Raya got 10. I didn't see too much of a difference between the two, but in the end, the golfing class was enormous. And Brentford were on a run of 6 games without a clean sheet, and they were also on a losing streak. They're not getting enough points. I know they got a good result against Aston Villa, but in general, they haven't won in quite a while. But in come Chelsea, and Frank Lampard has an awful managerial record recently with 1 win in his last 15 games. So Kepa Arrizabalaga isn't looking like a great option at this moment in time. He's still decent for the saves and bonus points, and if Chelsea ever get a clean sheet, then Kepa will probably be one of the highest scoring players in the match. But right now, things aren't looking good for Chelsea. They're at rock bottom, and with some really tough games from now until the end of the season, I think it's safe to say Kepa is no longer in my thoughts for the best goalkeeper, for the best wildcard, or free hit teams. I also sold Ben Mee this week for purposes Stupinian. That decision cost me 5 points. I don't think I would have started Ben Mee anyway, or he would have come on for me, so it wasn't a big deal, but it's very frustrating sometimes when you see a team and a player that haven't really been doing well for you, in this case Brentford defensively, you sell their asset and they finally deliver once you sell them. But that's FPL for you sometimes, and you know, football is a funny game. Estupinian, I wasn't actually that confident of a clean sheet against Nottingham Forest. I think they could have kept one, but I was still thinking in the back of my mind that they could have conceded a goal. But I was still quite set on Estupinian. He's a very good long-term option with the double game weeks in 34, 36 and 37. So despite the recent frustrations, I still think he's one of the best defenders to buy on the wild card. So no regrets there. I also have Botman. I went for that double up in Newcastle defensively, but it just hasn't worked out. I think in the last 11 games, Newcastle have kept just 2 clean sheets, and it will be typical for us to bench the likes of Botman, Share, Kieran Trippier in Game Week 34, and they finally deliver and produce that clean sheet and maybe some more points on top of it. Kieran Trippier is another one that's blanked, and he was looking absolutely impeccable in the first 20-21 game weeks of the season, but since then things have fallen apart, and he was looking dead certain to break the bonus points record set by Cesc Fabregas, but right now it's not looking like a formality as it once did back in January. So the defense has been a big issue for me, not just this week or in Game Week 32 on the free hit, but it's been a long-term issue for me where I'm not getting enough clean sheets. I'm getting a lot of 1 and 2 pointers. This week was no different, and even the goalkeeper this week was absolutely awful. So I'm looking for much better heading into Double Game Week 34, and I need it to get that score and green arrow that I'm desperately craving. You might be thinking I was guaranteed a red arrow after seeing my goalkeeper and my defenders, but a few decisions saved me this week, including keeping Bruno Fernandes, not taking a -4 hit to bring in the likes of Salah. And whilst I think Salah's a better option from Game Weeks 34 to 38, I still think Bruno Fernandes is a good option. And while I might not stack up to the likes of De Bruyne, Salah, and a few other Double Game Week 34 midfielders, I think he could be quite an underrated option this week. And those that sold him might find it difficult to buy him back in. So I'm very happy with Bruno Fernandes. And the same goes for Marcus Rashford, who produced a 12-pointer. His recent Premier League record hasn't been great. He's still got that double-digit return, and he can offer so much more from now until the end of the Premier League campaign. And one thing worth noting with Bruno Fernandes is that he's never missed a single game through injury. And after those images circulate online of him using a protective boot and using crutches, everyone thought that he wouldn't start on Thursday. I actually didn't think he would start against Spurs, but I started him just in case, because you just never know in football. And starting him over Saka only gave me 3 points, but those 3 points were more than welcome. Then we go to the other 2 midfielders. With Solly March, he got the assist for Buonanotte, but Brighton still lost 3-1. But Solly March has been ticking along nicely with those assists. His creativity and his underlying numbers for assists are very, very promising in the last 10 game weeks and since the World Cup. But one midfielder that was very disappointing, not just this week, but in the last 3 game weeks, is Matoma. He needs to start stepping things up. He was even poor in the FA Cup semi-final, and we all know what he can do. But in recent weeks, it hasn't been working out for him. Yet with this double game week coming up, I'm expecting Mitoma to bounce back, get some returns, and finally show why we all were talking about him for so many months and why he's been one of the best wingers in the Premier League this season. The game-changing decision for me was certainly keeping Harry Kane, and whilst he's only scored once against Manchester United at home in his entire career, and that didn't change after game week 33, he got 2 FPL assists. I think the first one was very fortuitous. I don't think it really should have counted as an assist, especially when you see how Isak and his fantastic run and how the way he set up that goal for Jacob Murphy wasn't awarded. But that's FPL for you sometimes. There are maybe some grey areas in the rules in terms of how assists are awarded and also in terms of bonus points. But nonetheless, Kane got 2 assists, 3 bonus points, and that 11-pointer was enough to guarantee a green arrow for me this week. And that was the big decider. And a lot of people said in the deadline stream, they were asking me, should I sell Bruno Fernandes and Kane for Salah and Isak? And whilst I thought it was a good long-term move, I wasn't so sure it was worth a -4 hit because I firmly believed Isak would be benched in game week 33. Now, I could have been wrong about that. I even said it in the deadline stream. But because I had that feeling, I was just absolutely settled on not buying Isak for at least one more week, and I decided to keep Kane, and this is a very good parting gift from the England striker, so I'm very happy with that decision. And Erling Haaland with a 14-pointer, he turned provider. He was the one setting up Kevin De Bruyne on 2 occasions in that title decider, so to speak, against Arsenal, and he also scored a goal late on. And even though I didn't want that to happen in the end, it did benefit me a little bit. I went up around 4,000 places because of the fact that I captained Erling Haaland and because of his late goal. There we go. Let's just move on. Erling Haaland is just an absolute freak of nature. And the last striker is Ollie Watkins. You could argue this is kind of an early kickoff. I know it was late on the Friday, but the fact that it was the first game, it's not really a big surprise that Ollie Watkins has disappointed. And he also did in game week 32, but his recent run since December has been fantastic. We can't expect it to go on forever. I don't think he's necessarily the best striker or in the top 3 in terms of strikers to have from now until the end of the season, but he is still a good option nonetheless. But with Isak, we've got Ivan Toney, Erling Haaland, Harry Kane even, and some other double game week options in 34 like Diogo Jota. I think Ollie Watkins will become less popular. We're going to start selling him heading into game week 34, and I don't think that will be a bad decision necessarily. But it's still worth considering his form, the underlying numbers, the way Aston Villa are playing. There are no signs of Aston Villa letting down. They've got the best unbeaten record in all of Europe's top 5 leagues at this moment in time. So selling Ollie Watkins might seem very simple with the fixtures and also his recent blanks, but I will also urge some caution. And in my case, I'll probably be keeping him, bench him, and instead, Harry Kane is the one to be sold. As I just mentioned, Erling Haaland was my captain, so I captained my highest scoring player, which is something I haven't done too often this season or throughout my whole FPL history, but I got 71 points and I've now gone up from around 96k to 77,000 in the world. So a good green arrow. It's about time because a lot of red arrows and kind of just staying in the same zone for the last few weeks. It's kind of been stagnation, not enough progress, but this week was much better. And I think the key to why I got that green arrow was keeping Bruno Fernandes and Harry Kane, and luck was involved in that decision, and I'm just happy that luck fell on my side this time round. Let's now go into my transfer plans for Double Gameweek 34, where I'm looking to take possibly a -8 hit. It could be anything, a -4, -8 or a -12, but ultimately a hit will be taken. This week, the goalkeeper situation seems much more simple. David Raya is at home to Nottingham Forest, who have the worst away record in the Premier League, whilst Kepa Arrizabalaga is facing a trip to Arsenal. And I know Arsenal have been very poor recently, but they're still scoring goals, and Chelsea don't look like they're improving at all. If anything, they're getting even worse, and sacking Graham Potter doesn't seem like a great decision when you consider the fact that they've appointed Frank Lampard. So David Raya will be starting for me. I don't see any real need to take a -4 hit to go to Alisson, David De Gea or Edison, who are probably 3 of the best goalkeepers to buy in Double Gameweek 34. I've already got a triple up in Brighton, so I'm also not going to take additional hits to also bring in Jason Steele. So David Raya will be in goal for me, and I generally don't advocate or recommend taking hits for goalkeepers, even if you're selling a single gameweek option for a double gameweeker. One transfer I'm looking to make this week is buying Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's got 5 assists in his last 4 games since he has been playing this inverted right back role, and he is really thriving at the moment. I know Liverpool are still not keeping clean sheets, but they're scoring goals, Trent is creating chances and getting FPL points. That's the most important thing. And he's got a double game week, and both games are at home, and I know Tottenham and Fulham aren't the easiest of opponents, but I still think Liverpool will score probably 2 or 3, maybe in each game, and Trent will be involved. So I'm very happy to have him on board. And despite Liverpool's recent clean sheet record, I'm backing them to keep 1 clean sheet in this double game week. Next up is Luke Shaw, who was disappointing in game week 33. I did bench him, so I didn't feel that frustration maybe compared to some of you. But with this double game week, I'm not so sure about Man United's clean sheet prospects necessarily, but United have been very strong at home and they haven't conceded too many goals at Old Trafford. Their issue is when they travel away to top half sides where they haven't kept a single clean sheet and they've only beaten Fulham from the top 10. And as good as Aston Villa have been in recent weeks, I still would give Man United the edge in that game, and they have a good chance of a clean sheet against Aston Villa at home, but I could be completely wrong about that. Nathan Ake is going to be the biggest conundrum for me this week. We should find out more from Pep Guardiola's press conference later on today. If he is available, I think he'll get at least 1 start in this double game week, and I could keep him. But if Ake is out, I've got 2 options: to either start Kieran Trippier instead of him or take an additional hit and move to another Man City defender such as John Stones. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think is the best course of action there? I'm slightly leaning more towards starting Kieran Trippier instead and not taking an additional hit because it would take me to a minus 12 overall, but that is also in the cards and I will consider it. So a lot will depend on Nathan Ake and whether he's fit, and I have a feeling he won't be starting both games, and that could be enough for me to just start Kieran Trippier at home to bottom of the league, Southampton. And my final defender and my Game Week 33 signing was Pervis Estupiñán. With Wolves and Man United at home, maybe 1 clean sheet out of the 2 is possible. An attack and return would also be nice, but Pervis Estupiñán is really a good asset to have in the long term with those future doubles as well in 36 and 37. My second new signing, and the reason why I'm going to be taking a -8 hit this week, is Mohamed Salah. In order to get him in, I will need to sell Harry Kane and downgrade him to get the funds needed to buy Salah. And Salah will be coming in for Bukayo Saka, who's done very well for me, and Arsenal have had a great season overall. But with those fixtures coming up, with a lack of double game weeks and some great premiums like Salah and De Bruyne rising to the fore, it just makes sense to sell Saka, and he will be the cash cow to buy Mohamed Salah as well. So Tottenham and Fulham at home, I have to say Salah is a great captaincy option, and if you are looking to go a bit different, then going for Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, or even someone like Bruno Fernandes and Rashford over Erling Haaland is the way to go. So you will have opportunities to go against Erling Haaland captaincy, and it is risky. We all know all the risks attached and involved, but I still firmly believe Salah can match Erling Haaland or outscore him. Now, if I had to make a prediction, I think Haaland will score more points at this moment in time, but I might warm more towards the idea of captaining Salah as we approach the deadline. And if I want to be different, then Salah as the captain will certainly be one of the big decisions to take this week. Then we go to the rest of the midfield, including Bruno Fernandes, who is now cleared. He obviously started against Spurs and he played the full 90. He's got a decent double. He's got a great record against Brighton, by the way, and he's also done well against Aston Villa in the past. So I think Bruno Fernandes could quietly be one of the best and highest scoring players in this double game week. Would I captain him? I don't think so, because I don't have enough confidence in his recent returns, and he hasn't proven enough in FPL in the last month or so for me to really advocate him over Salah, De Bruyne, Rashford or Erling Haaland. But he's certainly in the discussion in the top 5 or 6 best captaincy options on paper, and I'm very happy to have him, and he could be one of the difference makers for me once again. And the same goes for Marcus Rashford, although he's a bit more template and a lot of us will have him, but some people did sell him a few weeks ago for the likes of Grealish, and I'd certainly rather have Marcus Rashford in my team for this double game week and with those fixtures in mind as well. Then we've got Solly March, who has been pretty consistent in recent weeks, but I'm maybe expecting or hoping for a double-digit return for him to really make that difference over McAllister owners. And whilst Brighton have been a bit suspect in terms of results recently, I don't think the performances have been that bad, and they certainly can get some results against Wolves and Manchester United in double game week 34. And let's see what Matoma can do, because after a good period of blanks in the last few weeks, we're all expecting him to bounce back and to deliver something to really guarantee and to justify a spot in our teams. And I think those doubles in the future and his cheap price are enough for us to keep him. But if he doesn't deliver in Double Game Week 34, questions will be asked and people might look to sell even heading to Game Week 35 before we reach the next 2 Double Game Weeks to conclude this season. There's just one forward to talk about in this starting 11, and that's Erling Haaland, and that might just be enough with that double game week. And it's a bit boring, but he's always going to be in the captaincy conversation, and the only time where he's not going to be involved in these debates is when he's injured or when he's a doubt to start a game. But at the moment, he's fit, he's playing every game, he hasn't really suffered too many big injuries this season, and that double is probably the best on paper from any team. And when you look at the form Man City are in, Erling Haaland's producing double-digit returns in every competition. Every time he steps onto the field, he's just really going to be a no-brainer. You have to have him in your team. And then the only question you can really have is whether you can maybe back against him for the captaincy and go for a trusted option in Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes or Rashford. But apart from that, Erling Haaland's going to be in your team and he's always going to be in your captaincy thoughts. My bench is still looking fairly strong, but it's all going to be dependent on Ake. If he's out, then I could sell him for John Stones, or I could start Kieran Trippier and Ollie Watkins would be first on my bench. I have a feeling Nathan Ake won't be available for the first game, and if that's the case, Trippier comes in, like I just said, and Watkins maybe moves first onto the bench. But it is a bit of a shame. I think I've been a bit unfortunate with the Nathan Ake decision. I brought him in because he was the most nailed on Man City defender at the time that I brought him in, and in the end, he was benched for that game against Leicester. John Stones scored, of course, and Nathan Ake got injured in the Champions League, and John Stones went on to score yet again in the following Premier League game, so things haven't looked too rosy, and that decision not to buy John Stones instead of Ake has actually cost me probably around 14-15 points. I don't want to think about it too much, but sometimes these 50-50 decisions can cost you that much, and sometimes it really just comes down to luck, like it was for me. Keeping Harry Kane, I was very fortuitous with that decision as well. So that is going to be my bench. Greenwood would be the one to come in for Harry Kane in order to fund the moves for Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold in the back line. If I had enough money, I would go for Isak to prepare for Double Game Week 36. But really what I'm looking to do to maybe pile up on Newcastle as well in the weeks to come is to buy Isak for Ollie Watkins in a few weeks' time. And also, if I were to sell Botman for Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, I'm not so sure if that's a great long-term move. I know Newcastle have been very frustrating recently, but it might be worth keeping Botman and instead selling Nathan Ake to Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I have a few decisions to make in Double Game Week 34, but ultimately Salah and Trent will be coming in, and it's just a question of whether I sell Nathan Ake or Sven Botman, and also what I do with the starting 11. Do I bench Kieran Trippier? Or do I just start Trippier? Those are going to be the fine details that will pretty much decide how I do in Double Game Week 34. And the same goes for the captaincy. I'm currently leaning towards Erling Haaland, and I want to be a bit different. And that's why heading into the deadline stream, I might end up changing it to Mohamed Salah. He's the most likely to take the armband if I decide to go a bit different and not just go for the boring Erling Haaland captaincy. But I'm also having in the back of my mind the likes of Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and if they were in better form, a Brighton midfielder would also be taken into account. But I also don't want to give myself too many options and overthink it. So really it comes down to 3 options for me: Erling Haaland, Salah and Rashford. And at the moment, I'm going for the Norwegian striker. Whilst my moves are almost locked in and I'm fairly settled on Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mohamed Salah, I could consider an alternative, which means going for John Stones in for Nathan Ake should the Dutchman miss out at least the first game. Kevin De Bruyne could also come in for Bukayo Saka, and I can buy Isak instead of Greenwood to come in for Harry Kane. Now, I could also keep these transfer plans that you see on screen, but instead of going for De Bruyne, I can go for Salah. So I have a bit of a mixture of Man City and Liverpool, and I also have enough money in the bank to go with all of these moves. And this team is probably better set up for Double Game Weeks 36 and 37, with Newcastle doubling in 36 and Man City having one more double in Double Game Week 37. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below as well in terms of these transfer plans compared to buying in Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold with a budget option in Greenwood, just occupying that third slot on my bench, because there's going to be a few 50-50 calls that will impact how I do in Double Gameweek 34, but also those other Double Gameweeks coming up in 36 and 37, and this could be detrimental or absolutely fantastic to wrap up the season and could be absolutely game-changing decisions. So I've got a few different things to think about, a few alternative solutions, but it's all going to come down to whether I go for Trent versus Isak and do I go for De Bruyne versus Salah. That's what it all will boil down to in the end for Double Gameweek 34 and my transfer plans. I'm very, very settled on for taking a -8 hit. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to reach the goals like 300 likes and also 20,000 subscribers by the end of the season. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. And also check out Express VPN to get 3 months for free. So check all the links in the description below. I wish you all the best of luck for Double Gameweek 34 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.